The manila envelope landed on my dining room table with a soft thud that somehow managed to echo through my entire body. My husband Angelo stood there smirking, his mother Marlowe hovering behind him like a vulture in expensive perfume. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises," he said, clearly savoring each word, "though I prefer if you left sooner." I'm Annabel, and after 12 years of marriage, this was how my husband chose to serve me divorce papers, with all the warmth of a corporate layoff. "We've already contacted a realtor," Marlowe added, adjusting her pearl necklace. "The house needs updating." The way she said it made it clear she wasn't just talking about the furniture. I sat there, my hands folded in my lap. The way they taught me was proper. 12 years of their corrections, their subtle digs, their constant reminders that I wasn't quite good enough for their precious family name. "Nothing to say?" Angelo taunted. "That's new. Usually you at least try to argue." I reached for my purse, a knockoff that Marlowe never failed to comment on, and pulled out my own envelope. Blue, not manila. "Actually, I do have something for you both." "What's this?" Angelo snatched it from my hand. "Some kind of settlement offer? Because we're not interested in—" "It's an eviction notice," I said quietly. "You both have 30 days to vacate my house." The silence that followed was worth every second of the past 12 years. "Your house?" Marlowe's laugh could have cut glass. "Darling, this house has been in our family for generations. Nestor, God rest his soul, left it to Angelo. Actually," I slid another document across the table. "This house was purchased 6 years ago by Crown Point Holdings. Would you like to guess who owns Crown Point Holdings?" Angelo's face went from smug to sheet white in seconds. "That's impossible. When the bank threatened foreclosure." "When your father's gambling debts nearly lost this house," I corrected, "someone stepped in and bought it. Anonymously. That someone was me." "You're lying," Marlowe spat. "You could never afford—" "My inheritance," I said. "The one you both laughed about. Small town money, you called it. Turns out it was enough to save your family home when Angelo's business ventures put it at risk. Again." Angelo started pacing, running his hands through his hair. "You can't do this. This is our home." "Was your home," I corrected. "Now it's my home, and I'm exercising my right as the owner to terminate your tenancy." "We'll fight this," Marlowe declared, but I could see the panic behind her eyes. "Please do," I smiled. "I have 12 years of documented verbal abuse, financial records showing how you both tried to isolate me from my own money, and evidence of Angelo's creative accounting. Would you like me to continue?" The doorbell rang, making us all jump. Angelo moved to answer it, probably hoping it was his lawyer with some miracle solution. Instead, I heard a familiar voice, his cousin Zoe. "Baby, I got your message. Is she finally—" Zoe stopped dead when she saw me still sitting at the dining room table. Her lipstick was the exact shade of red that Angelo had once told me I could never pull off. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "I'll leave you all to discuss your living arrangements. Oh, and Angelo, the security cameras I had installed last month, they catch everything, everything." I grabbed my purse and headed for the stairs, but not before I heard Marlowe's sharp intake of breath and Angelo's muttered, "Oh, God." "I've arranged to stay in the guest house," I called down. "You know, the one you never let me use because it wasn't appropriate for family gatherings. Take your time packing, but do remember, 30 days. As I walked away, I heard Marlowe's voice rising in hysteria, Angelo trying to calm both her and Zoe, who seemed to be crying now. I closed the guest house door behind me and finally let out the breath I'd been holding for 12 years. My phone buzzed. A text from my Aunt Penny. "Did you give them the papers?" "Yes," I typed back. "Thank you for helping me set this up all those years ago." Karma takes her time, dear, she replied, but she always delivers. I looked out the window at the main house, where lights were flicking on in various rooms as my soon-to-be ex-family scrambled to make sense of their new reality. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. The war wasn't over. I knew them too well to think they'd go quietly. But for the first time since I'd walked into this house as Angelo's bride, I was fighting on my own terms, and I had the keys to prove it. The banging on my guest house door started at exactly 7:03 a.m. I knew because I'd been awake since 5 waiting for it. Open this door right now! Marlowe's voice carried through the wood like a dentist's drill. We need to discuss this absurdity. I took my time walking to the door, coffee cup in hand. When I opened it, both Marlowe and Angelo stood there, looking like they hadn't slept. Good. I have my lawyer on standby. Angelo thrust his phone at me. This little stunt of yours won't hold up. I took a sip of coffee. Put him on speaker. Angelo's hand shook slightly as he dialed. Stephen, you're on with Annabelle. Mrs. Newman, Stephen's voice crackled through the speaker. I suggest you reconsider this course of action. The documentation you provided is ironclad, I cut in. But please check again. Crown Point Holdings, registered in Delaware, purchased this property on March 15th, 6 years ago. The deed transfer was properly recorded. I have copies of every document, including the cashier's check used for payment. That's theft! Marlowe shrieked. You went behind our backs. Actually, I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Let me remind you of something. Your exact words were, if you're so concerned about the house, why don't you buy it yourself? Remember that dinner party, Marlowe, when you mocked me in front of everyone? Her face went pale. You recorded. I record everything now. Have for years. Amazing what people say when they think you're just the quiet little wife in the corner. Angelo stepped forward, his face red. Where did you even get that kind of money? Remember when you laughed at my mother's estate, called it pocket change? I smiled. Turns out modest investments in a paid-off house in a small town are worth quite a bit when sold. My Aunt Penny helped me set everything up. Penny? Marlowe spat. That bitter old woman? Is a retired real estate lawyer, I finished, who, by the way, kept excellent records of every time you tried to pressure her to reveal confidential information about my inheritance. Stephen cleared his throat on the speaker. Angelo, I need to speak with you privately. No need, I said. I'm sure you're about to tell him that after reviewing the documents I sent over last night, the purchase was legal and binding, and that fighting it would only expose certain creative financial decisions made over the years. The phone went dead. Angelo stared at it like it had betrayed him personally. Why? He finally asked. Why wait all these years to tell us? Because you needed to show your true colors first, to serve me divorce papers in my own home, to try to throw me out like garbage. I set my coffee cup down. By the way, how's Zoe this morning? Marlowe stepped between us. Leave her out of this. Why? She's family, isn't she? Cousin Zoe, who's been coming around so much lately, who Angelo's been meeting at the Riverside Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday. Angelo's face went from red to white. How did you? Credit card statements, Angelo. I've had access to them for years. The hotel charges show up as business meetings, but Zoe's Instagram tells a different story. She really should be more careful about what she posts. A car door slammed outside. We all turned to see Zoe herself walking up the path, her designer handbag swinging nervously. I got your text, she said to Angelo. What's going on? I picked up my coffee cup again. Perfect timing. We were just discussing living arrangements. Since you'll all be moving out soon, I assume you'll want to coordinate. Moving out? Zoe looked confused. But Angelo said once the divorce was final, he couldn't promise you this house. I finished, because it's not his to give. Marlowe grabbed Zoe's arm. Don't listen to her. She's trying to manipulate. Actually, I pulled out my phone again. Why don't we listen to something interesting? A conversation from last month between you and Angelo about how Zoe would make a much more suitable mother for future heirs than me. Something about better breeding? The color drained from both their faces. Zoe pulled away from Marlowe, staring at her in horror. You planned this? She whispered. I think we're done here, I said, moving to close the door. Oh, and Angelo, the movers I hired will be here tomorrow to start packing up your things. Don't worry, I'll make sure everything is handled with care, unlike how you handled our marriage. I shut the door on their stunned faces and leaned against it, listening to the chaos erupting outside. Zoe's voice rose in anger, Marlowe's in defense, Angelo's in desperation. My phone buzzed, a text from Lucas, my neighbor. Everything okay over there? Quite a show from my kitchen window. Just fine, I typed back. Sometimes karma needs a little help with timing. The movers arrived at 8 sharp, their trucks lining the circular driveway. Angelo stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching as they began methodically packing his life into boxes. You can't just go through my personal things, he snapped as I walked past with a clipboard. Actually, I can. Everything in this house was purchased with joint funds or family money. I'm having it all inventoried. I checked off another item. Unless you'd like to provide receipts proving otherwise. He stormed off toward his study, slamming the door. I nodded to one of the movers. That room next? My phone rang. Aunt Penny. How's the exodus going? About as well as you'd expect, I said, watching Marlowe hover protectively over her antique vases. Though they're in for a surprise when they reach Angelo's study. You found something? More like everything. I'm standing here right now, looking at... I paused as one of the movers emerged from the study holding a stack of files. Hold on, Penny. The folder on top had fallen open, revealing a letter with yesterday's date. From Stevens, Angelo's financial advisor. I picked it up, scanning quickly. Regarding the offshore account, transfer of assets before proceedings, minimize exposure. My hands shook as I read. Penny, I need to call you back. Send me your colleague's number, the one who specializes in financial fraud. Angelo chose that moment to return, his face turning ashen when he saw what I was holding. Those are private documents. Private conspiracy is more like it, I said, taking a photo of the letter with my phone. Planning to hide assets during a divorce is illegal, Angelo. You and Stephen should know better. You're bluffing, but his voice cracked. Try me. I handed the files to another mover. These go in the special pile for my lawyer. A crash from the living room made us both jump. Marlowe stood over the remains of a shattered vase, her face twisted in rage. You want to inventory that? She snarled. I smiled. Already photographed and documented. That's about $8,000 you just cost yourself. This house, she gestured wildly. Everything in it belonged to my husband Nestor. You had no right. Funny you should mention Nestor, I interrupted, pulling another document from my folder, because I found something interesting in the basement last night, an original copy of his will. The color drained from Marlowe's face. That's impossible. All copies were destroyed, except this one, sealed in a waterproof container behind the water heater, dated 3 weeks before his death. I held up the yellowed paper, very different from the version that was actually executed. Angelo looked between us. Mother? What is she talking about? Nothing, Marlowe snapped. She's lying. The signature on the filed will, I continued, was notarized by someone who, according to public records, died 2 months before the date on the document. Interesting oversight. A mover appeared at the top of the stairs. "Ma'am, we found a hidden safe in the master closet." "Don't you dare!" Marlowe started up the stairs, but I was faster. The safe was small, built into the wall behind what had been Angelo's suits. Inside, I found more documents, photographs, and a stack of letters tied with faded ribbon. "Love letters," I said, flipping through them. "Not from Nestor to you, Marlowe. From someone named Robert, dated right around the time Nestor died." "Give those to me!" She lunged, but I stepped back. "Mother!" Angelo's voice was dangerous now. "What did you do?" "Only what was necessary," she shrieked. "Your father was going to leave everything to his brother, all because of a stupid argument about the business. I couldn't let that happen." The silence that followed was deafening. Angelo staggered back against the wall, while Marlowe covered her mouth, realizing too late what she'd admitted. "I have it all on video," I said quietly. "The movers are wearing body cams. Standard procedure, you understand, to prevent claims of theft or damage." My phone buzzed. Lucas again. "Just saw Zoe leaving the country club. She was telling everyone about Marlowe's breeding program plan. Town's going to be talking for months." "Get out," Angelo whispered to his mother. "Get out of Annabelle's house." "Angelo, please. Now." As Marlowe fled down the stairs, I turned to Angelo. "The movers will have everything packed and moved to your new address by tonight. I took the liberty of paying for 3 months at the Madison Apartments." He looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. "You planned all of this, every detail." "No," I corrected. "You and your mother planned it. I just kept better records." I started down the stairs, then turned back. "Oh, and Angelo, check your email. My lawyer just sent over some interesting documents about Stephen's involvement in your father's company's collapse. Turns out Karma's been busy on all fronts." The sound of his sharp intake of breath followed me down the stairs, sweeter than any love song he'd ever sung. "You're throwing a dinner party?" Aunt Penny's voice crackled through the speaker. "Now?" I adjusted another place setting at my dining room table, now free of divorce papers and threats. Not just any dinner party, the exact same one Marlowe hosted last year when she deliberately didn't invite me. Deliciously petty. I'm in. Who else? Everyone they tried to drive away over the years. Remember Sarah from the garden club? The one Marlowe said wasn't refined enough? The landscape architect who designed the governor's mansion? That's the one. Plus Lucas from next door, whose wife they swindled before she passed, and Catherine, who Angelo called new money at the country club. The tech CEO, Catherine? Exactly. I stepped back to admire my work. Marlowe's social circle is about to get a reality check. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Lucas arrived first, a bottle of wine in hand and a knowing smile on his face. "Nice touch using their favorite caterer," he said, glancing at the elegant spread. "Who they still owed money to, by the way. I settled their debt yesterday." I took the wine. "Thank you for coming. I know this might bring up memories of how they convinced Janet to invest in Angelo's sure thing right before she got sick." His jaw tightened. "I'm exactly where I need to be tonight." The others arrived in quick succession. Sarah, Catherine, and 3 other couples, all successful, all previously snubbed by the Newmans. Penny made her entrance last, wearing a dress that would have made Marlowe seethe with envy. "Before we start," I raised my glass, "I want to thank you all for coming. Some of you know parts of what happened here. Tonight, you'll learn the rest." "Is it true about Marlowe and the forged will?" Catherine leaned forward. "The country club's buzzing." "Among other things," I pressed a button on a remote, and a screen descended from the ceiling. "Angelo never knew I had this installed. He was too busy with his Thursday business meetings to notice the contractors." The screen flickered to life, showing security footage from various rooms in the house. In one, Marlowe and Angelo discussed their plan to serve me divorce papers. In another, Marlowe coached Zoe on how to accidentally run into Angelo at specific times. "Good Lord," Sarah whispered. "They planned everything." "They did," Lucas added, his voice hard, "just like they planned their investment schemes. Annabelle, show them the financial records." I switched to a spreadsheet. This is how they targeted wealthy individuals going through personal crises, like Lucas's wife Janet when she was starting chemotherapy. The room grew silent as I walked them through the evidence: bank statements, recorded conversations, emails between Angelo and Stephen discussing their foolproof system. "The FBI has this now," I said quietly, "along with proof of tax evasion going back 5 years. "But how did you get all this?" someone asked. "By being invisible," I smiled. "They were so convinced I was just the quiet little wife, they never noticed me watching, recording, collecting every snide comment, every secret meeting, every hidden document." Penny raised her glass. "To the quiet ones." "Speaking of quiet," Lucas turned to me, "have you told them about the surveillance footage from last week? The conversation between Marlowe and Zoe?" I hesitated, then pressed play. The screen showed Marlowe in the garden with Zoe, their voices clear in the evening air. "Once you're pregnant," Marlowe was saying, "Angelo can divorce her. We'll say she was infertile, that she hid it before the marriage. With your bloodline, your connections, the child will be perfect." "But what if she fights it?" Zoe asked. "She has nothing, no money, no power, no influence. We'll destroy her, just like we did to that widow last year. What was her name? Janet?" Lucas's hand tightened on his glass. I quickly stopped the playback. "They're being investigated for Janet's case now," I said softly, "along with 6 other instances of investment fraud." The dinner that followed was cathartic. Stories were shared, connections made, alliances formed. These weren't the bitter cast-offs Marlowe had painted them as. They were powerful, successful people who'd seen through her facade. As the evening wound down, Lucas lingered behind. "Thank you," he said simply. "Janet would have loved this." "I wish I'd known her." "She would have liked you. She always said the quiet ones were the most dangerous." He smiled. "Need help cleaning up?" "Actually," I glanced at the clock, "you might want to stick around. Angelo's lawyer should be delivering their response to my countersuit right about—" The doorbell rang. "Now." I straightened my dress. "Care to witness what happens when karma comes with receipts?" Lucas offered his arm. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Together we walked to the door, ready for the next act in this carefully orchestrated dance of justice. "She's saying what?" I stared at my lawyer across her polished desk, the morning sun making the latest legal filing look even more absurd. "Marlowe is claiming you blackmailed her," Maria repeated, tapping the document. "She's filed a police report alleging you threatened to expose family secrets unless she signed over property rights." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "She does realize I have recordings of everything, right?" "She's desperate," Maria said. "But that's not all. Check page 4. I flipped through the papers. "A restraining order request from Zoe. She claims you've been stalking her, sending threatening messages, even following her to medical appointments." My phone buzzed. "Lucas, turn on channel 6 now." Maria reached for her remote. The local news filled her office's wall-mounted TV, showing Marlowe outside the country club, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "My former daughter-in-law," she was saying, voice trembling perfectly, "has orchestrated a campaign of terror against our family. Now in my condition, I leaned forward. My doctors have confirmed." Marlowe paused for the dramatic effect. I have stage 4 cancer. All I want is to spend my remaining time with my son in our family home. Jesus, Maria muttered. She's good. My phone rang again, Penny this time. Are you seeing this? Every Oscar-worthy moment, I said. Let me guess. She's been telling everyone at the club about her mysterious illness? Better. I just spoke to my friend at Memorial Hospital. No record of any cancer diagnosis for Marlowe. I put the phone on speaker so Maria could hear. Can we prove that? HIPAA makes it complicated, Maria warned. And even if we could, going after a supposedly sick woman would make me look terrible, I finished. Exactly what she wants. A commotion outside Maria's office interrupted us. Through the glass walls, I saw Angelo striding toward us, followed by security trying to stop him. Let him in, I told them. This should be interesting. Angelo burst in, waving his phone. Did you send these emails to my clients? What emails? Don't play innocent. Every major client of my firm just received detailed records of our investment practices. They're pulling their accounts. I studied his face, the dark circles under his eyes, the expensive suit that somehow looked shabby now. Actually, those came from Stephen's office. Seems he's cutting a deal with the FBI. Angelo collapsed into a chair. He wouldn't. He did, this morning, right after they froze his accounts. I leaned forward. Your mother's performance was impressive, by the way. The handkerchief was a nice touch. She is sick, he snapped, but wouldn't meet my eyes. No, she's not, but she is facing potential fraud charges. How's that for terminal? His phone buzzed. The color drained from his face as he read the message. Stephen? I guessed. Telling you he's cooperating? You've destroyed everything, he whispered. No, Angelo, you did that yourself. Every crooked deal, every betrayal, every lie. Those were your choices. Security appeared at the door. This time Angelo let them lead him out. My phone lit up with a text from Lucas. Zoe just left the country club. She was crying. Something about a positive pregnancy test? I showed Maria the message. And now Act 3 begins. You think the baby's not Angelo's? I know it's not, because Angelo had a vasectomy 3 years ago. I pulled out another file. Medical records he thought he'd hidden. Marlowe insisted on it. Didn't want any accidents with the wrong kind of woman. Maria whistled. The irony. Speaking of irony, Penny's voice came through the speaker. You might want to check your email. I found something in my old files about Marlowe, something from 30 years ago. I opened my laptop, clicked on the new message, and felt my breath catch. Is that? Maria leaned in. My mother, I said softly, staring at the old photograph. With Marlowe. They were friends? More than friends, Penny said. They were business partners. Until Marlowe met Nestor and decided your mother wasn't sophisticated enough for her new social circle. The business collapsed. Your mother lost everything. And that's why she left town? I finished, pieces clicking into place. Why she never talked about her life here. Marlowe's had it out for your family for decades, Penny confirmed. Your marriage to Angelo wasn't the beginning. It was her finish line. I sat back, letting it sink in. Well, then, I guess this isn't just about saving my marriage anymore. What are you thinking? Maria asked. I looked at the photo again. My mother's bright smile, Marlowe's arm around her shoulders, the sign of their shared business behind them. I'm thinking it's time for a different kind of family reunion. The hospital corridor smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Marlowe lay in the private room, looking frail and perfectly staged in her designer nightgown. Angelo hovered nearby, shooting daggers at me with his eyes. Come to gloat? He spat. Actually, I held up a manila envelope. I came to offer a deal. Marlowe's eyes flickered to the envelope. Even pale and supposedly dying, she couldn't hide her calculating nature. "What kind of deal?" she asked, voice weak but interested. "I found some interesting documents about a business partnership from 30 years ago. Riverside Designs. Ring any bells?" The heart monitor's steady beeping quickened slightly. "That was ages ago." Marlowe waved her hand dismissively. "A failed venture." "That you deliberately sabotage," I finished, "after you met Nestor, after you decided my mother wasn't good enough for your new social circle." Angelo frowned. "Mother? What is she talking about?" "Your mother and mine were business partners," I explained, pulling out old photos. "Best friends even, until Marlowe found a better offer." "It wasn't personal," Marlowe sniffed. "Just business." "Really? Because these bank records show you withdrew all the capital right before a major contract. You knew it would bankrupt my mother." The door opened and Zoe burst in, mascara streaking her face. "Angelo, we need to talk. Now." "Not a good time," he growled. "It's about the baby," she sobbed. "I just got the DNA test results." Marlowe sat up straighter, suddenly looking less fragile. "What DNA test?" "The one proving it's not Angelo's," I said quietly, "because Angelo can't have children. Right, Marlowe? That's why you had him get a vasectomy 3 years ago?" The room went deadly silent. Angelo turned to Zoe, who had backed against the wall. "Is this true?" he demanded. "I can explain," she whimpered. I thought if you believed it was yours." "You knew?" Marlowe's voice could have frozen hell. "You knew about his vasectomy?" Of course she knew. I pulled out another document. "Because you told her, right here in this recording from 4 months ago, when you were planning how to use a pregnancy to force the divorce through." Angelo staggered back. "Mother!" "Oh, please." Marlowe's sick patient act vanished. "Everything I did was for you, to protect our legacy. This little gold digger," she pointed at me, "never deserved our name." "Like my mother didn't deserve your loyalty?" I stepped closer. "I have proof you forged documents to destroy her business, that you deliberately ruined her reputation in town, all because she knew too much about your relationship with Robert while Nestor was still alive." The heart monitor's beeping became erratic. Marlowe's face turned red. "You don't know anything," she hissed. "I know Robert was Nestor's brother. I know you were seeing him before Nestor's convenient accident, and I know he disappeared right after you produced that suspiciously timely new will." "Accident?" Angelo's voice cracked. "Father's death wasn't an accident? Ask your mother about the insurance policy she took out 2 weeks before." Marlowe lunged for the call button, but I was faster. "Don't bother. The police are already here. They've been waiting to take your statement about Robert's disappearance." As if on cue, 2 detectives entered the room. Zoe used the distraction to slip out, still crying. "Mrs. Newman," one detective said, "we have some questions about events from 30 years ago." "I'm sick," she protested weakly, the frail patient act returning. "My doctor has confirmed you're not receiving any cancer treatment," I finished. "We checked thoroughly." Marlowe's face contorted with rage. She threw off her blankets and stood, yanking out her IV. "You think you're so clever," she snarled. "Just like your mother, always playing the victim. She deserved everything she got." "There it is," I said softly, holding up my phone. "The confession I've been waiting for, all recorded just like everything else in this room has been for the last hour." The detectives moved forward, but Marlowe was faster. She grabbed her purse and pulled out a small revolver. "Mother!" Angelo shouted. "Nobody moves," she said, voice shaking. "I've lost everything once before. Never again." "Actually," Lucas's voice came from the doorway, "you lost everything the moment you pulled that gun." He had his phone out, live streaming. The whole thing's going straight to the police captain and the news stations. Marlowe's hand trembled. The gun wavered. It's over, I said quietly. The truth always comes out, Marlowe. Always. She looked at Angelo, pleading, but his face had turned to stone as he stared at the mother he thought he knew. The gun clattered to the floor. As the detectives moved in with handcuffs, Marlowe locked eyes with me one last time. You're just like her, she spat. I smiled. Thank you. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. The detectives led her away, leaving Angelo standing alone in the hospital room, surrounded by the ruins of everything he'd believed in. The house is still yours for 2 more weeks, I told him. Make them count. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived. Penny gripped my arm as we pushed through the crowd. Mrs. Newman, any comment on your mother-in-law's arrest? Is it true about the murder investigation? What about the fraud charges against your husband? I kept walking, head high. Inside, Angelo and his new lawyer waited in the hallway. He looked smaller somehow, his expensive suit hanging loose on his frame. The DA offered a deal, he said as I approached, if I testify against Mother and Stephen. Smart choice, I replied. Finally. The courtroom doors opened. We filed in, taking our seats on opposite sides. Marlowe was already there in her orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, looking nothing like the society queen she'd once been. The judge entered and everyone rose. As we sat, I felt Lucas slide into the seat behind me. Made it just in time, he whispered. Zoe's outside. She wants to speak to you after. Before I could respond, the proceedings began. The prosecutor stood outlining 30 years of fraud, manipulation, and one suspicious death. The state will prove that Marlowe Newman orchestrated not only financial fraud, but was also responsible for the death of Robert Newman, her brother-in-law, whose remains were recently discovered on property she once owned. Marlowe's lawyer jumped up. Objection. These allegations are supported by evidence, the prosecutor continued, including a confession from Mrs. Newman's co-conspirator, Stephen Evans. Angelo flinched at Stephen's name. His former friend had turned state's evidence, providing everything needed to unravel their financial schemes. Furthermore, the prosecutor held up a familiar blue folder. We have documentation proving Mrs. Newman's involvement in multiple instances of fraud, including the case of Janet Perry. Lucas's sharp intake of breath behind me was barely audible. The evidence mounted, forged documents, recorded conversations, bank records showing decades of systematic fraud. Then came the photos of Robert's remains, found exactly where Stephen said they would be. Marlowe sat stone-faced until they played the recording from the hospital room. Her own voice filled the courtroom. She deserved everything she got, she cracked. Of course she deserved it, Marlowe screamed, standing suddenly. That little nobody thinking she could be my equal, and her daughter, she pointed at me, trying to take everything I built. Mrs. Newman, the judge warned, sit down or I made this family, Marlowe continued, wild-eyed. I protected our legacy. Robert would have ruined everything, just like that woman's daughter. Did you kill Robert Newman? The judge cut in. He was going to tell Nestor everything about us, about the money. I couldn't let him destroy what I'd built. The courtroom erupted. As bailiffs moved to restrain Marlowe, she locked eyes with me. You think you've won? She snarled. You've destroyed your own husband. My son! Is that what you wanted? No, Marlowe. I stood slowly. You did that yourself. Every lie, every scheme, every murder, those were your choices. I just brought them into the light. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Remove the defendant. We'll resume after recess. As they led Marlowe away, still ranting, Angelo approached me. I never knew, he said quietly. about Robert, about your mother, any of it. Would it have mattered? He had no answer. Outside the courtroom, Zoe waited, looking nervous. Annabelle, can we talk? I nodded, following her to a quiet corner. The baby, she twisted her hands. It's Stephen's. He promised me everything would work out once Angelo inherited the house. I never meant. Save it, I cut her off. The DA has your recorded conversations with Marlowe. You knew exactly what you were doing. Please, she grabbed my arm. I'll tell them everything about the planning, the schemes, all of it. I can't have my baby in prison. Lucas appeared beside me. Like Janet couldn't be with her daughter during chemo? Zoe dropped her hand, backing away. Talk to the DA, I told her, but don't expect mercy from me. Back in the courtroom, the verdict was swift. Marlowe, guilty on all counts. The judge's words fell like hammers. Life without possibility of parole. Angelo's plea deal meant 5 years, with restitution to all victims. Stephen got 10. Zoe, turning state's evidence, got probation and community service. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed again. This time I stopped. Mrs. Newman, what happens now? First, it's Ms. Reyes again, I said clearly, and what happens now is justice. For my mother, for Janet Perry, for Robert Newman, for everyone they hurt. And the house? I smiled, feeling Lucas's presence behind me, solid and sure. The house is just a house. The truth, that's what matters. And the truth always comes home eventually. Penny waited by the car, holding up her phone. It's done. The wire transfer from their frozen accounts, full restitution to all victims. Including Janet's daughter? Lucas asked quietly. Especially her, I confirmed. Some debts take longer to pay, but they all come due eventually. We drove away from the courthouse, leaving the cameras and questions behind. The war was over. The cost had been high, but the truth was worth every penny. The moving truck pulled away from the house, carrying the last of Angelo's belongings. I stood in the empty foyer, keys heavy in my hand, when the doorbell rang. Lucas stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this? Perfect timing, I said, letting him in. I was just about to start cleaning out Marlowe's room. Want help? We climbed the stairs together, our footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Marlowe's room still smelled of her expensive perfume, the closet still full of designer clothes with tags attached. Donation pile, I decided, pulling out armfuls of silk and cashmere. Wait, Lucas held up a dusty box from the back of the closet. Look at this. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. My mother and Marlowe, young and smiling, standing in front of their shop. My mother at what looked like Marlowe's first wedding to Nestor. Happy moments frozen in time before greed poisoned everything. She kept these all these years, I murmured, even after everything she did. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Penny, waving a folder. You need to see this. Now! We gathered in the kitchen, my favorite room, the one place Marlowe never entered because real ladies don't cook. Penny spread out the documents. These just came from the executor of Nestor's estate, she explained. Apparently there was a safety deposit box none of us knew about. Inside was a letter, dated the day before he died. I picked up the yellowed envelope. The letter inside was brief. To my son, Angelo. If you're reading this, something has happened to me. Your mother isn't who you think she is. The proof is in the old garage files. Everything about Robert, about the money, about what she's planning. Be careful, trust no one. Dad. He knew, I whispered. He was going to expose her. And he paid for it, Lucas added softly, just like Robert. There's more. Penny pulled out another document. Nestor had a second will, hidden in the box. He left everything to Robert's daughter. I froze. Robert had a child, a daughter, given up for adoption before he disappeared. The executor traced her. Penny met my eyes. It's your mother, Annabel. Robert was your grandfather. The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. Lucas steadied me as the truth sank in. Marlowe knew, I said. That's why she hated us so much. My mother was Robert's daughter, the rightful heir to everything. Which makes you Nestor's granddaughter, Penny finished. The house was always meant to be yours. A knock at the back door made us all jump. Angelo stood there looking uncertain. Sorry, he said when I let him in. I forgot something in the study. He stopped when he saw the photos spread across the counter, picked up one of Marlowe and Robert. I found Mom's diaries, he said quietly. She wrote about Robert, about how much she loved him before everything went wrong. She wrote about your mother, too. Did you read about what she did to them? He nodded. I came to give you this. He pulled out an old key. It opens the wine cellar, the real one, behind the false wall. Dad's private collection is there. It should go to you, his granddaughter. Angelo. I'm moving to Seattle, he cut in. Fresh start, away from all of this. He managed a weak smile. The house was always too big for me anyway. After he left, Lucas helped me clean up the broken coffee cup while Penny organized the documents. What will you do with the house? Lucas asked. I looked around the kitchen, seeing it with new eyes, not as a prison of manipulation and lies, but as a place of hidden truths and unexpected inheritances. I'm thinking of turning it into a shelter, I said, for women escaping financial abuse. Janet would have needed a place like that. Lucas's hand found mine. She loved that idea. Speaking of ideas, Penny called from the study, come look at this. She'd found Nestor's old business plans, including designs for the property that had never been built, gardens, community spaces, a place for people to heal and grow. He had the same dream, I realized, before Marlowe twisted everything. Then let's make it happen, Lucas squeezed my hand. Honor both your grandfather's legacies. I looked at the photos one last time. My mother's smile, Robert's kind eyes, Nestor's quiet dignity, then at the people with me now, Penny's fierce loyalty, Lucas's steady strength. First, I said, we need to repaint this kitchen. Marlowe would hate yellow. Their laughter echoed through the house, chasing away the last shadows of the past. Outside, the garden waited for spring, for new growth, for transformation. Some might call it karma. I called it coming home.